You felt it before you understood it. You walked into a room full of people who know you, and somehow something was off. The smiles were there, but they did not land. The conversations flowed, but not with you. It was subtle, almost invisible. But your body noticed before your mind could explain it. And here is the part that stays with you long after you leave. You did nothing wrong. You did not offend anyone. You did not cross a line. You showed up the same way you always do. And yet there it was, a quiet distance. A cold shift in the air that no one acknowledged, but everyone felt. Now listen carefully, because this might sting a little. What if some people secretly dislike you, and you are completely unaware of it? Not because you failed, not because you are difficult, but because of something far more uncomfortable. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you will see people differently. And more importantly, you will see yourself differently. Most people believe that dislike has a clear cause. Someone says something wrong. Someone behaves badly. Someone creates conflict. But what if I told you that the strongest reactions people have toward you often have nothing to do with what you did? What if your presence alone is enough to make someone uneasy? Picture this. You are speaking and someone suddenly interrupts. You share an idea and the topic shifts too quickly. You succeed quietly and the jokes become sharper. Nothing direct, nothing obvious, but it repeats again and again. This is not random. This is not in your head, and it is definitely not about you in the way you think. Before you assume you are the problem, pause, because what you are about to understand will either unsettle you or set you free. And if you have ever felt this silent tension, this unspoken rejection, then you need to hear this. Keep watching. You are not being misunderstood. You are being felt. That is the part nobody tells you. Most people spend their lives believing that tension comes from actions, from words said wrong, from mistakes made in public. But what if the real trigger has nothing to do with what you say? What if it is about what your presence forces other people to confront inside themselves? Stay with this, because this is where everything starts to shift. Every person you meet is living behind a version of themselves they have carefully constructed. A controlled identity, a polished surface, calm, agreeable, put together. This is the version they show the world. The version they defend without even realizing it. But underneath that surface, there is another layer. One that rarely gets seen. One that is filled with everything they had to hide to become acceptable. Their envy, their insecurity, their fear of not being enough, their quiet regret about the life they did not build. And here is the uncomfortable truth. That hidden layer does not disappear. It waits. It waits for something to touch it. And sometimes that something is you. Not because you are loud, not because you are confrontational, but because of something far more subtle. You are becoming more aware, more honest, less willing to pretend. You see patterns. You notice inconsistencies. You no longer play along just to keep things smooth. And without saying a word, you create pressure in the room. Because your presence introduces a dangerous possibility. The possibility that you can see through the performance. Now imagine what that feels like from their side. Imagine spending years building an image, managing how people perceive you, smiling at the right time, saying the right things, avoiding anything that might expose the cracks. And then someone enters the room who does not react the way others do. Someone who is not impressed, not intimidated, not easily influenced. Someone who feels calm without needing approval. That person becomes a problem. Not because they attacked you, but because they make your performance feel fragile. This is where the shift happens. Instead of looking inward and asking why this person makes me uncomfortable, the mind takes a shortcut. It redirects the discomfort outward. Suddenly that person is arrogant, cold strange, too intense, too different. And that person is you. If this is starting to feel familiar, do not look away. This is the moment most people click off. Because it forces a deeper question. Not who dislikes you, but why your existence creates that reaction in the first place. And it gets even more precise than this. There are patterns to how you trigger people, and once you see them, you cannot unsee them. The first is when you start growing. Not loudly, not performatively. Quietly, you become more disciplined, more focused. You take your life seriously. And without announcing it, your behavior becomes a mirror. It reflects the excuses others are still holding on to. Your consistency highlights their inconsistency. Your progress highlights their delay. And even if they never say it out loud, something inside them tightens. The second is when you represent a path they abandoned. This one cuts deeper. Because resentment rarely flows downward. It flows upward, toward the person who became something they once had the chance to become. You do not need to remind them. Your existence already does that. And the easiest way to silence that discomfort is to minimize you. To call it luck, to call it timing, to call it anything except effort. The third is when you stop needing approval. This changes everything. Because most relationships are built on invisible exchanges. Validation for belonging, attention for influence. When you step out of that system, when you stop explaining yourself, stop seeking reassurance, something breaks. From your perspective, you feel free. From their perspective, they feel replaced. And people do not react well to losing control they did not know they had. The fourth is when you become unpredictable, not chaotic, just no longer easy to read. You do not react the way you used to. You do not take the bait. You do not over-explain. And for someone who relied on your predictable responses, this is deeply unsettling because it means you see the pattern. And once someone feels seen at that level, they either grow or they resist. Most choose resistance. The fifth is when you refuse to participate in quiet lies. Every group has them. Unspoken agreements. Things everyone pretends not to notice. When you stop laughing at what is not funny, when you stop agreeing just to keep peace, you break the illusion. And people protect illusions more fiercely than truth. The sixth is when you start saying no. This one reveals everything. Because the people who benefited from your lack of boundaries will feel the loss first, not as clarity, but as rejection. They will not say they missed the version of you that was easier to use. They will say, you changed, that you became difficult. But what they are really reacting to is the end of access. And the final pattern is the most painful. You move forward, and the gap begins to show. Not because you left anyone behind, but because you kept going. And that silent distance asks a question most people do not want to answer. Why am I still here? Why did I stop? That question does not get answered. It gets redirected toward you. If you are still here, you are starting to see it. This was never about being liked. It was never about being perfect. It was about pressure. The psychological pressure your presence creates in people who are not ready to face themselves. And here is the part you need to hear clearly. Do not shrink to make this stop. Because if you do, the tension does not disappear. It just becomes invisible again. And you go back to being accepted for a version of yourself that was never real. If this is hitting something inside you, do not ignore it. Subscribe now and stay with this channel. Because understanding this is only the beginning. The real shift is learning how to live with it without losing yourself. You cannot fix what was never about you. That is the truth most people spend years avoiding. You keep replaying moments in your head, searching for the mistake, the wrong tone, the wrong word, the invisible line you might have crossed. But the reality is far more unsettling. There are people who will feel uncomfortable around you, not because you failed them, but because you revealed something they were trying to hide from themselves. So stop shrinking. Stop editing your personality just to make other people feel at ease. Because every time you make yourself smaller, you are not solving the problem. You are only delaying it. The tension will return just quieter, just more familiar, until you forget what it feels like to be fully yourself. Instead, learn to see clearly. Not every cold reaction is feedback. Not every distance is rejection. Some of it is reflection. Some of it is the cost of becoming honest in a world that survives on performance. Choose your response carefully. Let some connections fade without chasing them. Pay attention to the people who move closer when you are real, not further away. That is where you belong. If this opened your eyes, subscribe now and stay with this channel. Because the next step is not just understanding this pattern, but learning how to stand in it without losing who you are.